Okay, so Rob Manfred is the commissioner of baseball, and I do appreciate that you took the time to do this for us because South Florida is really mad. Baseball has been really bad to South Florida for many years, and I don't believe that baseball deserves a single customer in South Florida. So that's where we start, and it's not much of a welcome, but
it's a nice way of saying thank you for the time.
Well, thank you for the time, but I want to get to the question. Yeah. So thank you, Rob, for joining us. But were you aware?
Well, can I stop? Let me just stop you. I mean, I understand the concerns that have been expressed in South Florida. The one thing that I think you leave out in your description is there have been 2 World Series champions in South Florida. Whether people like everything that happened in between, after, or not, there's a lot of markets who would make that trade in terms of having those 2 World Series champions.
Rob, were you aware of Jeter's plan to trade players and slash payroll?
It's interesting.
Yes or no, please? Yes or no, please?
I'm happy to do yes or no's.
You can elaborate afterward. I just want to know if you were aware of that plan. Like did you approve a plan that had slash payroll again for South Florida?
We do not approve operating decisions by any ownership, new owners, current owners, or not. And as a result, the answer to that question is no. I'm not going to be deposed like this is some adversary thing. You want to ask me questions, I'll answer them the way that I want to answer them.
Okay,
but if that's not
fine.
Good enough, we can move on.
No, that's fine. I'll do it that way. But you can't come. You're coming on here and saying that you weren't aware of Jeter's plan to trade players and slash payroll. Like we're starting with a lie, Rob. Like that's where we're starting. Like you can't tell me you're not aware of that.
And have you call me a liar? I explained to you that we do not get involved in operating level decisions in the ownership process, the ownership approval process. Clubs make those local decisions.
Rob, were you aware of his plan though? Were you aware of it?
No. We did not have player specific plans from the Miami Marlins or any other team
we
approve in the ownership process. Those are decisions that the individual owners make. And they do not have to be cleared with us or approved by us.
Did every plan that end up on your desk from all the owners all have payroll slashing in them? Yes or no? Not individual players, payroll slashing to take care of the debt. Yes or no?
The first payroll plan from the new ownership arrived here 2 days ago.
Rob Manfred with us on ESPN Radio.
Rob, is it normal when new owners are buying a team, Major League Baseball, is it normal for them to say, hey, here's the vision, here's what we're going to do, we're going to trade Stanton, we're going to slash payroll? Isn't that a normal practice? Like, correct us if we're wrong. Is that a normal practice?
It sounds like this was a surprise to you, Rob, and it just seems that stretches credibility. Like, a surprise that Jeter was going to do this? Like, you know what the money is. You know how much Jeter has. You know the amount of money involved. Like, you know the dollar amounts. This is happening without that part doesn't make sense.
What about that doesn't make sense? We don't approve, dictate, or necessarily ask clubs what they're going to do with respect to their individual operations. Those are local decisions that really are not part of the approval process.
Are you aware that Jeter has an employment contract that pays him where he doesn't have to make cash calls, that he is going to be paid for profit? So again, you guys are going to end up in one of these situations where if he fails as a business, he can just keep cutting payroll. Are you aware that Jeter has that in his contract?
I'm aware that Derek has an employment contract. Every individual provision in that contract, I couldn't tell you whether you're accurate or not right now. I did see the contract at the time of the approval, but I just can't recall the provision you're talking about.
Why would you approve? Why would you know? Did you know that a dismantling was coming? Yes or no?
No.
Okay.
We approved. Look, this is really simple. We approved a very well-funded group that made numerous presentations to us about their commitment to provide winning baseball in South Florida over the long haul. Okay, that's generally what we look for in the approval process. We don't get into, are you going to trade player X or player Y at a particular point in time, or nor do we ask them to make a commitment as to what they're going to do with payroll before they've even got in and made an evaluation of their talent level, their ability to win with the people that they have there. That's just not how the ownership process works.
Well, explain to us how it does work. Like, because you're the commissioner of baseball, one of your jobs is to get ownership consolidarity on whether they're going to approve somebody into your club. They approved Derek Jeter. You know how to get that solidarity. It's part of your job. So explain to me how it happened without you knowing it.
Okay, let's try to actually get the facts correct, okay? They approved a group headed by Bruce Sherman, okay, number one. Number two, just like in every other ownership transfer, we examined the financial wherewithal of the group. We made sure that the governance structure of the partnership was consistent with our rules, and we had interviews with the people who were going to be running the club to get a general understanding of their approach to running the club. Everyone that was involved in that process, including me, was convinced that this group is committed to winning baseball in South Florida over the long haul.
Is Bruce Sherman using Derek Jeter as a meat shield?
You'd have to ask Mr. Sherman what.
Well, I tried to, but his secretary
motivations
sent me
are.
to Derek Jeter. She referred all questions to Derek Jeter. I tried to. I did that on the air. She told me, please talk to Mr. Jeter. Who is Bruce Sherman? Who is he, and why was he approved? Because all the bids came in low on cash.
That's actually not true. I mean, I know you keep saying these things on the radio, but you have no idea what the cash was in this deal. The fact of the matter is, this club, after the transaction, had the same amount of debt as it had pre-transaction, and the largest commitment of equity of any franchise in the history of Major League Baseball.
But Rob, they have
it was
to
the single largest commitment of equity ever in the history of the game.
Well, I know that, Rob. I know that part. The reason I interrupt you is because I think you cared more about that $1.2 billion asking price than you did about the fans of South Florida.
Yeah, well, can I tell you something? You actually have no idea what I care about and don't care about. The fact of the matter is, a competitive club in each one of our 30 markets is my foremost concern.
Well, but Rob, you got a problem here now, though, because you're not going to have many fans. They want to get the revenue up. They're not going to be able to get the revenue up because of the hostility in this market, because this has happened 4 times. And now what happened after trading Cabrera with a new stadium with Giancarlo Stanton? Like, the revenue's never going to get up unless they win. And if they don't win, then we've got a ballpark and baseball just failing here at everything but business, because you still got your $1.2 billion.
I know that you have yourself fairly worked up on this topic, but I'd offer you the following facts as a matter of perspective. Okay, baseball has always been a cyclical business. Probably the best example of that is what we've seen in the last 5 years. In 2012, San Francisco and Detroit were in the World Series. They're going to pick 1-2 in the draft this year. In 2013, based on 2012 results, the teams that were 1 through 5 in the draft, Houston, the Cubs, Colorado, Minnesota, and Cleveland, were all in the playoffs this year. The strategy that apparently the Marlins have adopted is one that is tried and true in baseball. I'm not saying it's without pain. As a matter of fact, I think the fans in Houston endured some bad seasons. But it was a process that ultimately produced a winner, and that process is really dominant in terms of the thinking in our game right now, in terms of particularly smaller markets' ability to win.
Teams are reportedly getting $50 million each from BAM Tech. Are they free to use it as they please, or does that money have to go to what's happening on the field?
No, the teams are free to use the proceeds of the BAMTech sale and all other centrally generated revenues in the way that they see fit.
If I may ask you, Rob Manfred, Commissioner of Baseball, with us on ESPN Radio. This television contract is allegedly a salve that's going to finally get business money flowing. The ESPN purchase of Fox seems to me, and I don't know what I'm talking about here because I don't know this business, but it seems to me like ESPN buying sports and taking the leverage away from that contract actually being as big as it can be. Does the ESPN purchase of Fox and this regional sports thing concern you in terms of how much money they can actually get to make this plan work?
No, it really doesn't concern me. I think that all indications that we've had is that Disney and ESPN are going to be committed to the local market in the same way, the RSNs in the same way that Fox was. It's a question of identity of bidders. Our content, including local content, has tremendous value. And because of the value associated with live sports, I think teams, including the Marlins, will continue to have leverage in this market.
Commissioner, I beg you not to be the commissioner when you answer this question. I make you a Miami sports fan, okay? You're a sports fan living down here in Miami. Are you spending a few $100s and 5 hours of your time going to a Marlins game? What reasons do fans have to go to a Marlins game? Commissioner, I promise you wouldn't do it.
Look, I think that Major League Baseball in all of our markets is a fundamentally sound entertainment product. I think your assumption as to exactly how the Marlins are going to perform on the field may not turn out to be accurate. I don't know whether it will or it won't, but I hope that the fans in South Florida, like fans around the league, will generally embrace the fact that the new ownership group in Miami has a long-term commitment to winning baseball in Miami, and that they will support the teams in the lean
why would you
years
believe that?
as well as the good years.
I don't mean to insult you, Rob, but like I live here in South Florida. Like you can't know what it's like down here if you think that, or you're not looking at the attendance numbers. Baseball has betrayed South Florida now on this 4 times, the latest after getting a shiny new stadium. Like, I'm not sure. Was there anyone in that room telling you about the dangers of slashing payroll in South Florida?
Look, the new ownership group has been in place for a few short months. I've said this before. I doubt that you're going to agree with me, but it's why they make chocolate and vanilla. I think that this group deserves a fair opportunity to demonstrate that they have a long-term commitment to winning.
Okay, but how can we give them that opportunity when their first order of business is to trade the MVP at below market value, taking money on it, like giving money away? Like that does that seem to you like something that South Florida can handle? Because do you have a worse baseball fan base than South Florida? Do you have one worse than that?
I think that the fans in South Florida are enthusiastic about Major League Baseball. I think you saw that during the World Baseball Classic. I think there's a market there that will support a team if the market believes, as I do, that this ownership group has a long-term commitment to winning.
So, Rob, I know you're saying you didn't know their plan, their day-to-day plan, when they decided to purchase the team. But once you realized that Derek and the ownership group, they were dismantling this team and trading away the reigning MVP, what was your reaction? Were you upset by it?
Look, my reaction to it is the one that I have stated publicly previously. I can understand, and I try not to make baseball decisions because, I am not a talent guy. I can understand how you could look at the situation in Miami and decide that the best course of action for this club, given how good it was on the offensive side and where it was from a pitching perspective, that the best course of action was to reload and try to win over the long haul. I understand why they might have reached that conclusion.
Were Laurie and Sampson the most hated people in the sport?
I'm not going to answer that question.
Were you happy to see them leave?
I'm not going to answer that question either.
Why is Mike Hill still in charge? Is that anything to do with baseball? Mike Hill is still the general manager of the team. They cleaned everyone else out. Mike Hill is still in charge. Do you have anything to do with that?
Major League Baseball has no control over the employment decisions that the Miami Marlins or any other club makes.
Okay. Rob, thank you for the time. We appreciate it. We're out of time. Thank you for being on with us. I know that wasn't enjoyable for you. It wasn't enjoyable for me either, by the way. I'm not looking to use you to just celebrate myself. You've got a very angry South Florida fan base down here, and I get the impression that you just don't know how angry it is.
Well, your impression, like a number of them, are incorrect. I actually spend a substantial amount of time in South Florida. I own a home in South Florida. I am fully aware of the reaction that the fan base has had. I am also aware of the fact that baseball is committed to making Major League Baseball a success in Florida, the entire state, south and north.
But you can do that now because you got a stadium with taxpayer money. You do understand that portion of it, right? The three other dismantlings you can make an argument for, the very rational baseball argument that you're making. But we were told when Miguel Cabrera was traded that when they got a new taxpayer stadium, it wouldn't happen anymore. You understand that, though, right?
Look, I think that is a broader statement of the commitment that was made in the stadium process. I don't think anybody ever committed that a particular player wasn't going to be traded in an effort to be competitive over the long haul. And look, our difference on this is pretty fundamental. You don't want to give this new ownership group a fair opportunity to demonstrate that, A, they have a plan and that plan is directed at winning. I believe that they have a plan. I believe that they are committed to winning. And, it's going to take some time to see who's right about it.
All right. Yeah, I don't. I believe they're committed to making money, and I believe you've made it very easy for them to make money whether they have fans or not. And I don't know that that's refutable.
Let me be really clear about that. If you believe it's easy to make money in South Florida with Major League Baseball, you are really dramatically ill-informed.
I know, but I don't understand. The stadium was supposed to. Yeah, Jeffrey Luria just made $1.2 million, and he bought in for $10 million.
He made over $1 billion, Commissioner.
All right, we got to go. I'm sorry, Commissioner. We're 10 minutes past time. Thank you I appreciate you being respectful. Thank you, sir.
All right, bye.
This is the Dan LeBatard Show on ESPN Radio.